panel near and dear to my heart. We are on the business and trends track, and we're calling this panel a role reversal because we're flipping the script and letting a seasoned designer put media professionals in the hot seat. And so we're so pleased to welcome, and a friend of mine, Jill Cohen, Editor-in-Chief of Luxe Interiors and Design, Chelsea Butler, Executive Editor of Kitchen and Bath Business, to give their professional advice and guidance on getting published. And then it's moderated by Amy Pigliacampo, Principal Amy Pigliacampo Interiors, who has been published in Dwell, Domino, Better Homes and Gardens, Rue, and many more. So she knows a lot about getting her work out there. So please enjoy this. And Jill, Chelsea, and Amy, welcome to the stage.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you guys for the warm welcome and for joining us today. As Sophie mentioned, I'm Amy Pigliacampo Interiors is my company. And I'm really excited to be here with Jill and Chelsea today. So as you guys know, as designers, it's can be very daunting to get published, and it also can feel very opaque. And so I have a lot of questions for Jill and Chelsea to hopefully demystify this very exciting process of getting published. So, you guys ready to go?
Ready.
Okay. So my first question is really starting at the beginning. A designer like myself has just finished a project. We're ready to have it photographed. How important is it to hire a professional photographer and stylist?
I mean, I know you probably have more to talk about with the photography, but for us, it's a given. We can't accept a project without it being professionally shot. That's the only way to minimize shadows, get the correct lighting, all of that. And any of our readers would be able to see right through if we had a project that wasn't done professionally.
Well, for us at Luxe, I value the quality of the photography so much. I feel that designers only get to show their work to the public through their photos. Very few people actually go into your environments and see them. So it's really an investment in yourself and your own marketing to really showcase it the best you possibly can.
So, having said all that, what do you look for in the images? Like, what stands out for you when you're reviewing all the submissions that you get?
For us, we like to have a really nice vertical shot to go for the cover image that shows good detail of a kitchen or a bath project. It's really hard sometimes to choose bathroom photos just because there's smaller spaces and sometimes the depth is a little off. But then we also have full bleed projects for the more horizontal shots, and then we also like up close photos of things like maybe the hero range in the kitchen, something like that, that we're going to talk about in the text that we want a little bit more focus on. So, complete project images, and then we also like to have some specifics as well.
For us, it's a lot more about a full house. And for me, I feel like when we're having a feature in Luxe, I really want a dynamic living room and I want a dynamic kitchen. I feel like it's highly unusual for us to select a project that has a weak living room or kitchen because, we don't want the opening pages to be weak and then you get to a wow bedroom. Also, we do find places in the magazine, we have a kitchen and bath section, and oftentimes we'll find an outstanding kitchen, but the rest of the house is maybe not as much of a wow factor, and we will consider it for the kitchen and bath section of the magazine where we do highlight single rooms or terrific rooms. But for kitchens specifically, and living rooms, I love a big straight-on horizontal. Many of the big straight-on horizontals do also give us a vertical, and this month, I think the past few months, our Luxe issues have featured, we do 14 to 16 regions for every issue, and that means 14 to 16 covers every 8 weeks. And one of the kitchens, I think, that's probably on our slide or out in January was a kitchen that was shot vertically, we used on the cover, and the horizontal we used inside. So it's really important when you work with a photographer to get both, because we want to see the full expanse of the kitchen. We want to see how it goes into the pantries, how it connects to the other rooms, how far the cabinetry goes, and all of the other. And you're not going to get that in a vertical. So we love the horizontals, and we also really love the different angles of the kitchen, because for me, the ideal feature is a house tour, where you go in and you see how the house connects. And for me, the photography, if I can connect the kitchen to how it goes into the dining room and how you see the pantries and what you see beyond, it's really a different experience.
I have another point, kind of in the vein of what you were just saying. Could you define a shot list, just in case someone doesn't actually know what that is? Because if you're not from the magazine world, or you've never run a shoot on your own, you may not know what that is.
I'll start with this and hand it over, because I have a very strong philosophy. I used to produce coffee table books, we still do, but kind of our side thing. And I produced literally thousands of shoots. And the biggest mistake I see are designers that are kind of trusting the photographer to go in and make decisions for them. And I've seen incredible, top designers say, well, I hired so-and-so, he knows what he's doing. And I'm like, well, he's shooting the room that you didn't like, or he's shooting a piece that you didn't do. And I think the most important thing I've always done on a photo shoot is everybody rushes. It's expensive, so you get in, the stylist, the photographer, they're setting up, you don't want to disturb anybody. I require my designers to give a very thorough discussion to the photographer on what we're shooting. And if it's a full house, I want to walk you through, I want to show you what I did, I want to show you what matters to me, I want to show you the corner of the house that I couldn't change, I don't want pictures of it. I want to show you the chair that, was the grandmother's chair that I don't like, don't shoot that. If you don't tell them what you did, they're sometimes aiming the camera at a pretty bouquet of flowers when you custom made a table that, is the central point of your work. So the first thing is you always have to take the time to say, I'm giving you a tour, I want to point out what's important. And many photographers want the shot list first. They're like, send me a shot list, I'm going to give you an estimate, you want 20 pictures, whatever. They're looking at, kitchen, dining, whatever. It's so much more than that. And if they don't take the time to listen to you and have you direct, oh my God, I handmade this hood and had a craftsman, whatever. When I would go into homes with designers that we were working on their book, and they'd go into detail about something they did or special lighting on I'm like, that's so outstanding. Let's stand here and make sure we get that in an extra picture, because then I have them think of it this way. What if this picture shows up in a magazine? What's your caption? You want to talk about what you really did. And so if the photographer doesn't know and the stylist doesn't know, it's like, don't be hands off. You've got to be the director. So go ahead.
Yeah, I think you pretty much covered it there. I would say, obviously, work with a photographer in taking the shots that you want. And some of the things that we notice, and this may be a next question that you're asking, some of the kitchens and baths are either not enough props, and then too many props, and it does take away from what you were saying, like the custom hood that you built, or the freestanding tub in the room. Like your eye goes somewhere else.
Yeah, the styling is so key. I have to say, styling can ruin a kitchen. You can have an incredible branches, and you've just blocked all the cabinetry, and it's a great picture, but our readers at Lux really care about the design. They want to know whose cabinets, whose tile, what flooring. They want to see it. And if it's covered with props, props should enhance the photo. A prop should be like out of the way and pretty enough to accentuate what's going on in that kitchen. So if you have this, you know, gorgeous countertop and tile and all these interesting things, you know, you may have a low bowl with something pretty, and you never want it to look like, unless you're selling it, a real estate shot that's completely clean and empty. We don't want to publish that. We want to see that people live there and it looks beautiful. And I often tell my designers, why don't you think about, you're having people over in the afternoon, they're just coming to visit you. You're not going to strip your kitchen. You're going to just, and you don't have to put out, you know, wine and breakfast and croissants and overdo it, you know? You want to make it inviting, like this is how we live, it's beautiful, it's clean, it's organized, there's some fresh fruit or fresh plants, and be logical. There's too much styling where somebody's putting like greenery and under, you know, cabinetry where you wouldn't have greenery because there's no light. And I think, you know, does it feel real? So I think I always say, open up the magazine you want to submit to. You look at Lux, or you go online and you can see 60 features in every issue. And take a look at all the kitchens and how they're styled. That means we've accepted them, they've been professionally shot, and we're really showing the detail the right way. And listen, if your photographers are very expensive, if they don't take the time to sit down and have you review what you like, and stylists, then you shouldn't work. You don't want to work with somebody who's like, I know what to do, like get out of the way. That's never
I think it's
really
important too that you have to have a really good relationship with the photographer, but you also, like, to your point, you have to remember that, like, this is your vision as a designer. You're also hiring the photographer, they work for you, so it's a collaboration, but also, like, you are the creative director, you are the art director. You have to direct them so that you get what you want out of that shoot, not leave it up to whatever they see, because it is about the story, like, of the whole project.
For sure. And the other thing, when you hire a photographer and you get them on the phone, you should be able to reference, oh, I saw these, you know, I saw this project you did in Lux, I saw this whatever. How, you know, how, did you have a stylist there? How involved were you? Like, you want to know, you know, what their involvement was.
Yeah. You guys, you started kind of going towards this question, but my next question is what I feel like everybody wants to know, which is, what should you not do? Like, what are the mistakes that you see in your submissions? You know, people try, what's like the most common mistake or mistakes?
Yeah, as I was mentioning before, sort of the not enough props or too many props. Even with professional photographers, I still think lighting can be an issue. In certain, there are a couple of projects that we get where the lights are not on in a project, and we want to see both versions of that because, you know, then we end up needing to have our art director, you know, lighten the photo or something if there are no lights on. And then to have somebody who's really good at, you know, doing the bathroom shots in a more narrow space that don't make it look like the tub and the shower are right on top of each other. Some of those depth issues we have a lot that we see, but you know, we've got a couple of projects that come to us where the designer has said, this has been professionally shot. And every once in a while we have to say, but it doesn't look good. Like, you really need to maybe look into hiring somebody else. And actually saw somebody last night at an event who said, I submitted something when you first started like 10 years ago, and you immediately told me that the photos weren't good enough. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you've kept that for 10 years. I was nervous, but you know, they appreciate that because we just weren't going to be able to cover it. So even if you do have a professional photographer, make sure you look at their work, their examples, and that, you know, you like what you see there, because if not, you may be spending thousands of dollars on a shoot that isn't going to work for a publication.
You know, what really interests me about what you just said was that we don't want the lights on. You can see in the Lux photos, a house tour, oftentimes the different lighting in the rooms brings a glow and a cast and shadowing that we cannot correct internally. So we want lights off. And what we do enjoy is when we can see both, especially there's so much amazing lighting, and especially in kitchens or bathrooms where you might have really creative, innovative things that are built in. We want to see that, but give us the option to run it with or without. Because what's interesting is if one room is lit and the others are not, then the project is uneven. And if you go through Lux, you'll see that 99% of our projects, the lights are not on. So it's almost like sometimes we get a project and all the lights are on, it's just not even gonna fit in our well. So, you know, it's interesting because the more kind of trade-oriented magazines, that's why, you know, if you want to get published, you also have to have a photographer who's willing to do a lights on and lights off. Sometimes they're like, well, pick one. You're like, you really want to broaden your opportunities publishing. I will say one more thing, not about kitchens, but same thing with unmade beds. You know, there was a trend to kind of not make the bed. And then we've seen it go awry where you see this house and everything is tailored and pristine. And then the bedroom, they didn't make the bed. And we're getting like, did they intend to do that? So it's like, give us both ways. And also back to the styling, if you have a concern that maybe something on the countertop looks too big or awkward, you know, try it with or without. Just give the magazine an option. So many times we'll see something and we're like, oh my God, there's like a dog on the counter. Oh, good, they gave us one without. You know, they thought maybe we think it was cute, but.
I think another question too, and I've told many people this, the photographer that you're working with, make sure that they shoot tethered so that you can see what the shot is, because there is no way that you can look at what you're shooting in real life. The way that that translates to a flat image is not what you think. Like, it doesn't matter how many times you've done it.
It's so different.
You need to see it
It's
on the
so
screen.
different. Going behind and looking at the screen, you'll be like, oh my God, it's blocking, that bowl I put is blocking the beautiful special tile that I made. And you can't see that if you're not standing where they're standing.
Yeah.
And I will say that's the biggest value of a professional stylist. It's not that they do flower arrangements better, and a lot of them do, but what they're really good at is if they're a good stylist, you don't want somebody arranging flowers and hire someone who's not going to stand behind the computer and look and say, oh, wait a minute, I have to zhuzh this over because it looks imbalanced or it's just off balance. And I do find that when I work with a photographer who has a stylist they've worked with before and are comfortable with, that's like, do you find teams?
Yeah, I wanted to push one more example out there when you brought up the unmade bed. And our publisher, Natasha, I don't know if she's here or not, but I'm going to call her out. When we share the cover images with her, you know, because that's our big deal. When there is a dish towel in the kitchen that's not just so, or there's a towel on the bathtub, and we're like, all I can look at is that crumpled up towel, and I hate it. So yeah, that's just one of the little examples of a prop that we don't like.
Yeah, again, it's very tricky. Some stylists like to put the cloth over something, and you know, sometimes you're looking at the pictures and you're like, that looks dirty.
Yeah.
Or
I
messy.
think it's good to have options if you can, like, build that into the time, like, because if you're trying to submit for Lux versus for you, or you're trying to win awards with your work, like, those images are different than the way that you might put together an editorial story. So, and planning ahead of the shoot, you can accomplish all those goals, I think, even if you don't have a ton of time. So I just think like that planning aspect is huge. Like you cannot just show up on the day. Like you really have to think about it from all the different angles. Like you want to win awards with it, you want it to be published as an editorial, you have to really think about like the end goal and like work backwards from that so that you can cover all your bases.
And what goes along with that is a lot of people before a shoot, they'll say, oh, I'm hiring the stylist. I want her to come and style the day before. Well, the problem with that is the photographer is going to find the right angle. And, you know, if it's too organized the day before, he's directed to be like shooting, you know, the headboard with the roses because the flower arrangement looks good, where the view out the window might have been better. So you don't want to, you know, you want to have things prepared. You want to have, you know, props, florals, things ready, but you also want to be able to add and remove. And honestly, it's never wasteful, but you need to have more than you think, because a few branches that look good, all of a sudden in the picture you'll be like, oh no, I can see through them, and we need one more. So yeah, I think that's a lot of planning.
Even like mood boarding. I mean, like I'll put together mood boards for styling prior to a shoot because there's just a lot going on that day, and you have to like have a visual language to communicate, because words are not always the best form with this type of thing, because we all mean, you could say modern and we all mean something completely different. So I think having like the visuals is really important.
Yeah, that's super important. Also, here's a little money saving idea. Most of our clients are just overwhelmed with the cost of shooting. It's so expensive. Styling is expensive. The prep is expensive. And we do try to, you know, be efficient. And, you know, shot lists and prep eliminate that third day on set or even a second day. So one of the things we found was if you hire a stylist and they're shopping for you and they're looking for things, they often need to charge you for the work time. So one of the things we do is if you have a really nice kind of assortment of props, or your homeowner has beautiful things, shoot them individually. Get on the phone with the stylist and say, let me share with you what we have before you go out and spend a day prepping and propping. Can you use what we have here? And we've done that with kitchens specifically, where a stylist will hone in and go, oh, these three things really look good together, keep those out, and then work with them. Should I get some linens? Should I get some more, you know, what kind of bowl should I, you know? And then they've kind of, you've curated what you like, and then they're selecting from you. Because the other way around, I've seen people hire a stylist where they're like doing Zoom calls for half a day showing, you know, all the ceramics and all the whatever, and it's a lot of work, and then they have to order it and buy it or return it. So, you know, try to put your props together that coordinate, that you like, and then use the stylist sparingly to help you prep.
I think too, just kind of developing your own prop library. Like we're always out, we're always pulling things. There's just some times where it's really helpful to like have some nice linens and have a couple of interesting ceramic pieces, and it helps to add to whatever the stylist brings. And stylists also get really excited to see things that they haven't seen yet, and they want to incorporate that. So I feel like you can never have too much stuff from a styling perspective. In the shot, yes, but in the background, no. Like options are really important.
I agree. I don't know how much the types of props matter to you in terms of.
Yeah, I mean, I know we're going to get into like the other stuff for submitting, because this level of photography and props and things like that isn't as important to our trade publication as it would be to yours. So, yeah, I can't really speak to the, you know, much more on our end with that, but.
Well, I think, and you'll have a lot to say about this, I think, Chelsea, but beyond the photos, what are you wanting to see in the project write-ups or the narrative or whatever is accompanying those images as submissions? Like, what's important for you?
So, because we're a magazine for the trade, and it's kitchen and bath business, so we want our readers to come away with knowledge, like something that they've learned from the projects that we feature, whether it's a print article, online. For instance, what were all the challenges that you overcame? If it was a major before and after, like what were the horrible details from before and how did you improve those? If there were sustainable design elements, we're going to tell that story as well. So it's more than just the project itself and like what kind of countertop material is that, because we feature, we have that information as well. But we do, for each project, we want the pretty pictures, but we want our readers to be able to learn something from each. So when submitting to us, it's very helpful to have as much information as possible on the project, above and beyond, again, what the countertop material was and, maybe what the overall goals were. And then we have, if we're interested, based on, the bit of information that we have and the photos that we received, we have questions that we send out, kind of with the catered around some of the examples I just brought up, in terms of, the big before and afters, the solutions, and then we think, like, where would this fit? What's the lesson learned? What are the things that we can share with our audience? So on top of the photos, it's really helpful for us to get the information that we're looking for in the submission as well.
For Lux, I'm kind of looking for something different because I'm telling a whole house story, and even if I'm focused on a kitchen, I really want to see how the entire house connects. My first priority is looking for creativity, design creativity. I want to look at something and be like, oh wow, I haven't seen this. This is really clever, at least in one room or two rooms, where we want to show off the people who make the houses and the products in the houses. We want to show off the designers, the architects, the brands, and all the beautiful materials. So in order to do that, I want to tell a story of, this was a ground up house. This is how many square feet. Here's how we approached it. Here was the team. It was a full team or it wasn't a full team. And really what our process was and how we used these materials and connected them throughout the house. And really, in a lot of ways, educating other interior designers. And we have all homeowners that are getting our magazine. We distribute to homes. We're speaking to the homeowner and the trade saying, here's how to really put a house together in a professional way. And, I'm not interested in that much in the people who live there. Everybody wants a comfortable home. We're not a celeb magazine. We don't really show the people who live there. I mean, if there's an amazing story of that it's an artist and the designer was working with them and placing their art, it's part of the story. But other than that, if it's a family that's downsized or upsized, that's not that important to me. I want Lux to be a showcase of the design talent in the industry. So I'm looking for, to me, a winning picture is when we're on Zoom and we're like, oh my God, I've never seen this before. It's so creative, it's so fantastic, it's so, well thought out or just well designed, or I just want to move in, That to us is like, it's a visceral reaction. Or like you'll see from some of the pictures that are in Lux, it's just an awe-inspiring, like, oh my God, look at that marble counter. Just, something to, admire.
So when we're targeting a specific publication, you guys obviously have very different goals with your magazines. What should we pay attention to in the sense of, I like to say, how do we think like an editor, but more in the sense of, I feel like we shouldn't send the same 50 images to you that we would to Chelsea, kind of like pre-editing what we send to you guys so that we're almost like presenting your point of view and what might be interesting to you versus what might be interesting to Chelsea. Like, how would you explain that to designers, like to think in that way, like to tailor it to the publication?
I guess, we don't expect the designers to think like editors. I mean, that's our job. I don't know how to design. But I would say to do your research in terms of the publications you're going after. Again, we have some similar goals with our publications, but some differences as well. So if you do your research ahead of time on the publications, then you know who the audience is. With KBB, do you want to share your work with your peers? I would think so. And have them learn from your projects. We have a few designers who actually send us like, oh, you have to look at this person's project. Like they want their peers to be published in our magazine, which I think is really nice. But I think doing some research ahead of time just to look at the magazine and think like, okay, so this particular project may fit well for KBB because, again, there were a bunch of challenges that were overcome. So, along with the photos, we have 3 challenges that we go into detail about. And you'll speak to your magazine, but, it may be a different set of photos or a different sort of set of needs that you would need. And I think, again, you don't have to be an editor to do that, but I think that being familiar with the publication, it's great. Like it's when you go for an interview for a job, you've already checked out the website, you've checked out as much information as you can. If you haven't, you lie and you say, of course, yeah, absolutely, love that site. But you have to do a little homework in advance.
Yeah, I totally agree. I can tell once in a blue moon we get a submission, I'm like, do they read our magazine? They're, pitching and presenting in a way that, like, that's really not what we do, or we're not even, yeah. So you can tell. But I think it is just like a job interview. It's like,
yeah,
I love you, I want to be in there,
yeah.
and
I've shown
also
you that I care.
Also, the other thing is one of my favorite things is our editors will present to me and say, oh my God, this designer, this is the 5th time she's presented. It's her 6th year in business. This is her best work. She's come back. She knows what we want. We coach some photography. And then, when we accept it, it's such a great full circle moment because, they send us notes like, oh my God, like, you guys coached me and it's so great to be here. It's hard to expect that your first time out, maybe you're going to nail it perfectly, but you have to start somewhere.
That ties into my next question, which is that, getting press, it is about the work, but it's also about the relationships that you have with editors and their awareness of you. And so my question is, how can we as designers be persistent but not annoying? And so, like, what is the strategy for that? We've submitted, you've passed on something, or we haven't heard back from you. Like, what does that look like on your end that you would feel not annoyed about? And just like, this person's persistent. It's not right now, but I like them. I'm gonna keep looking when they email me.
Yeah, so we're a staff of 2 editors. So, when we have projects that are submitted, right away, if I don't have enough information, I'll go ahead and send that list of questions so that I can get the ball rolling with that. But yeah, we don't necessarily always have time to get back to somebody on whether or not we're trying to get better about this. But it takes such a long time for us to go through everything that we have to determine, like, this would fit great here, this would be great online. But we sometimes don't do that for a month after we've gotten a submission. Sometimes right away we're like, oh my gosh, we know this would fit somewhere perfectly. Sometimes it takes time. So I would say for us, don't be discouraged. Maybe don't reach out in a week and say, did you get to see it? Because nope, we probably didn't. But do reach out, ask the question, do you think you want us to feature that? If we haven't gotten a chance to get back with you ourselves, we can say, well, we don't have a print opening until the end of the year, but we do have digital opportunities once a week. So, and those are well populated in our newsletter. They get a lot of attention. And then we may say, we just don't have an opening for this, which kind of just translates to, it's a really pretty project, but we can't find a learning aspect from it. But please don't be discouraged. Please continue to submit when you have time. I know it takes time to do this as well, but just understand that it takes a long time for us to go through all of our projects and kind of decide. We do have some designers who we're friends with, or we know more than others, or are on our editorial advisory board. One thing I've done, just in the short time that I've been at KBIS this year is, paying attention to who designed specific booths, and I haven't heard of some of these people's names, and so I may, in my spare time, reach out to these designers and say, hey, we've never featured you in our magazine before, we'd love to see your work. So sometimes we do some of the work on our end as well, but don't be afraid to reach out if you haven't heard back in a couple of weeks or a month and say, what was the problem, why couldn't you use it, and then don't be discouraged to submit something again. Maybe you have more information from us at that point as to what we're looking for.
So we have a very different process because we have, like I said, 14 regions, and we have editors across the country, and everybody kind of has an area of that they live in Nashville or Atlanta or Texas, and that's our regional homes editor, and that person gets the submission. But what's really key about Lux is that we're really into our community. And in every region, we have a lot of events, and we show up at things like this, and we do a lot of panels, and a lot of programs, and design centers. Whether we're in Dallas or Denver or whatever, we always have somebody. We always have our market editors or the homes editor in a region, and we like building relationships. I love meeting people at these events that come up and say, I've been submitting, or I was published by Lux. A lot of people say the first time I was published was in Lux, and we build these regional relationships, and they're kind of part of our community, and we love that because they're kind of supporters, and we listen to them, and we get excited when they send us another project, and I think. It is there is a lot of relationship building with the editors.
I think trying to decide, because both of these questions feel related to what we just talked about, but just kind of another note for maybe people that don't have as much experience with how magazines work, but could you maybe touch on what an editorial calendar is and how that can also affect timing of submissions, and why something might not be a good fit, like for your June issue versus your August, or September issue, right. That type of thing? We publish 6 print issues annually, hoping to have more coming soon. But then we also have a digital calendar. The print is a little more organized and specific, and that's something you can easily find on our website to sort of see what themes we'll be, using in each, whether it's going to be centered around sustainability or wellness or technology, that kind of a thing. In terms of deadlines, we work, I don't know, maybe 2 months out, something like that. Maybe sometimes even more if we've got a couple of projects on hand for, our before and after, and we know we want to cover this in this issue and this one later on in the year. There's not much rhyme or reason to it being helpful for you all to know exactly what timeline we're on, just to sort of understand, how many issues we have and that we're limited with what we can cover in print. Digitally, again, it's not as specific or organized in terms of this is the theme that we're going to be running this month or anything like that. So there's less of a need, for people to pay attention to that.
We have the opposite problem. We have 14 magazines and content that varies in uh, each location. So we have to work very far in advance. Our March, April issues are out now, just came off press. May, June is like going on press in, a week to 10 days. We're planning right now, July, August, which is, my market editors are sitting there nodding, where we have like our plans for the pages and trying to figure out how we fit in some of the stuff we saw here, because we're like already wedded to some things. And also we have September, October, and November, December planned out, and lots of projects already accepted. I think for us, we do two things. One is we like to get into the psyche of what's going on in home across the country. So we know January, is kind of the hibernation month. The weather's not great everywhere, so we always do something about wellness or in-home. And we also know that, July, August, everybody's, out of the city, so we kind of, focus on escapes. And then, spring refresh and fall back indoors. But we have so many warm weather regions. We publish all over California and Texas and Florida, and a lot of people living in heat all year round. And then we have Chicago, New York, and cold areas. So we try not to get overly seasonal. We struggle with getting, some great ski house that's snow and it's beautiful, and, it's February and we're like, all right, we're working on July issues. These people are gonna have to wait 10 months. So that happens, but I think ours are a little bit more, we feel, while we're looking at our submissions, we're like, oh, this is so autumnal and this is so rich, and we think this would be great in September. And sometimes it drives the theme of the magazine, of what we're kind of seeing on submissions. So, for us, submitting any time is great, because if we love the project, we want to find a spot for it.
So we're getting kind of close on time.
Okay.
And I definitely want to ask you guys, for someone who's never been published before, this is all new to them, what is like your number one piece of advice when starting to pursue press?
I would say for us to just do it. We're all pressed for time, but you're not going to be published or share your work with your peers or consumers. You're not going to win a design competition if you don't put forth the application. Same thing with a magazine submission. Make the time and do it, and you'd be surprised, if you put some effort into that with the nice photos and the information along with your submission. You might be published, and it doesn't, a design competition is a little different, but, being published in our magazine doesn't cost anything. It costs a little bit of time on your end, but then we do the work after that. We do the interview, we write the article, we publish the magazine, and then your work is out there to share with whoever you want. You want to share your work with more than just your clients. So yeah, my advice would be just do it.
I think for Lux, I would recommend, I'm kind of surprised I'm saying this, but I think for your first time, it really wouldn't hurt having some professional help, a publicist or a marketing person, somebody who's submitted before that might just give you the guidance of like organizing the photos in the certain sequence. Somebody who has worked with Lux and has had a project accepted, they're gonna have some knowledge into what we ask for, what we're going to want to see if, the team, if there's an architect involved, if there's somebody else, they may be able to guide you on brands that, that we feature frequently, or things that might excite us. I think, there are people that, it doesn't have to be a big, really fancy PR firm. There's a lot of people I know in all the regions that have worked in marketing for different firms that might freelance, and you want somebody who's done this and knows how to do a submission. That kind of help can help provide what we don't want is like a 2-line sentence going to an editor with a link to pictures that have like 90 pictures with scouting and befores and afters. It just is like, it makes our editors do a lot of organization to dig through and find what's working. So I think a little professional help on the first time. And you might have somebody say, I don't think you're ready, or let's do something in a small local thing first and, submit 3 wow rooms. So that kind of help, that kind of advice is valuable.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for all of your insights and different perspectives. And I think it's clear that this is a multi-step, multi-layered process, and it's like something that builds and something that you have to continue to work on and improve on over time. So I think it's time to open up to questions from audience for Jill and Chelsea.
Thank you for being here. I have 3 really quick questions. One is about recessed cans. Are we supposed to edit them out or leave them in? Before and afters, do the befores have to be professional? I'm thinking yes, but that's kind of tough sometimes. And then if we post our projects on social media, is that going to hurt us to get published?
Why don't you answer that?
Okay. The social media question, no. I guess it depends on how well you're being followed too. So like if you have 1 million followers, we may not consider that particular project for our cover because it's already been seen a lot, but it doesn't mean that we wouldn't include it somewhere else inside or digitally. The before and after, I don't believe that I've rarely get a professional before photo. Something to think about, if you can. And I know there's sort of some confusion around, for ours, it is always really nice to get the before of the exact same angle as the after, but in some of our projects, if walls have been ripped down and it's a completely different look, we would still consider a shot that's a little different. We can put some different afters in there to make sure people understand. We do now before and after floor plans, so that gives our readers a little bit more, of a outside of a photo, how to see like what all the changes were. And then your first question. Recessed cans.
Yeah.
Sometimes we leave those in, and sometimes we take them out ourselves. So I wouldn't say that your photographer has to do that. We can do that on our end, but.
Well, we don't do before and afters, so that's, yeah. And same with the lighting, sometimes we take it out. Social media, it's a tricky question. I think sometimes we're loving a project, and while we're reviewing it, we look at the Instagram and we see that like every hero has been exposed, and then we're like, oh no, gee, how recently was it exposed? How many followers do they have? It does influence us. If there are 2 projects, then we've got spot for one, and one has been really exclusive, and we love an exclusive. We love that. That's our priority. I think some people, want to do sneak peeks in progress is fine, or a shot where you really might have people in and you're prepping and you see a glimpse of it, but you really want to see the whole thing. That's fine too. But I think, when we get a link and we've got a full house and that every one of those has just been seen, we're so long lead that's going to be up there on the feed for 6 months before we show it, and we kind of then look kind of late in the game.
Hey ladies, thank you so much. Hey Chelsea. I have a question. I actually have 2 questions. Vertical blinds. Number 1, what do we do with them, right? And then number 2, the question is, do you look at, and obviously both magazines will be different, but do you want to see, Chelsea, more for you, before design concept, after? Is that something that you want us to submit to you?
So the second question was the before? Yeah, so we I haven't even actually seen our magazine here yet at the show, but we just launched our January, February issue with a new design. And so for all of our before and afters moving forward, we do want to see the before and after floor plans. We've had designers asking for those over the years to really, to get that information. And then with the submission, if you're specifically submitting something to be considered for that, well, we're going to get to it in the interview, but any information you have up front so that we can be like, wow, that is like, we can see it in the photos and the floor plan, but maybe just some information to submit as well, just like telling the shocking difference. Vertical blinds, I might leave that to Jill because I don't know exactly. We don't, I suppose you could, I don't know, what do you do with vertical blinds?
I do. I'm actually curious too about the blinds. It's because it's a thing. What's just really quick? Do you have a rule, or is it really situational?
Situational.
Yeah.
Depends. We do. There are things where, like, fences, certain blinds, or poles or things like that. We will take it out as long as we're not really altering the architecture. Yeah.
Do you want to ask me something?
Yes. Thought it was, since we turned the tables, we do have questions for Amy. I wanted to ask Amy, what was the first thing you had published, and how did you find the photographer, or did you,
So the first thing that I had published when I was officially designing was a cabin that I remodeled. It was my cabin. I worked with a publicist, and I worked with David Lauer, who's an architectural photographer. So I definitely hired the right people, and I was really happy because the first yes that came back was from Dwell. It was their paid content, so it wasn't like the print magazine, but it was like, to me, that was like very meaningful.
Validation.
And it felt like, in my mind, that was a project for Dwell. And so it was just like a really nice, like, okay, I understand this magazine,
Yes.
like this is what they like this is a good fit, and they kind of liked my take on it. And I learned, I did work with David on 3 projects, and I learned a lot
Yes.
working with him.
It's really nice to find a photo partner that connects and is listening to you, because then, you have somebody that you grow together.
Yeah, he really,
Did the publicist help guide you too?
she pitched it for me.
Yeah,
but
good.
it was really David and I working together, and like,
Right.
I just learned a lot working with him about, like, because he publishes an AD and Dwell all the time, so he understands like the flow and like the type of story that they want to see, and like he understands what shots to get, and like
Yeah.
there were things that it was really new to me then. So that was my first, like.
It's a really good point to think about the fact that people hire you because you have professional expertise in a certain area. And photographers and stylists and publicists have a different expertise and experience. And it's almost like, it's almost like a homeowner saying, I'm going to do my kitchen myself. It's like you wouldn't really recommend it. So it's like, you're a respected professional, and there are people that can help, in this area too. I think valuable.
Thank you. This has been really informative, and this is like the role reversal of the role reversal. And the question is...
Oh, we can't hear you.
Okay.
Oh, that's better.
That's good. Okay. Thank you. This has been very informative. And the question is, in a role reversal, and you're really booked out with your publication, but have you ever run across a project that was so creatively compelling that you switched what you were already committed to?
Every time.
Okay.
Every time. We'll move something up. Like, actually, our cover of New York this month and National is this really wild wow project, March, April. And when it came in, we were probably booked for March, April, and we're like, okay, we've got to find something in March that can move to June, because this, I don't want to wait. I don't want to hold it. It was just, you know, also spring was like a little bit of a color wow factor because January, February is just, by the nature of winter, a little, you know, less colorful. So this was just, yes, we do switch it around. Sometimes something's just more appropriate.
We don't necessarily switch around that often, but I will say for the cover here, it's gone by a couple of times. We had another cover in mind, and something else came along. It's, I'll plug him, I don't know if he's here either, but it's Nara Bustamante, and he is a great designer and also has a great photographer. So when he said, we have so many projects to share with you, I was like, well, we're gonna take a look at those, and immediately found something that just was just kind of blew our original cover away. I'm not naming that designer, but it's pretty. We still want to use it, but you know, it doesn't happen as often, but it does for some of the really major issues that we have.
I have a question. So first of all, thank you for all the information. It's been very helpful. When it comes to sending your submission via email, what makes it clickable? As in the subject line, do you want it to say pitch or do you want it to be something more creative?
I'd rather just see new submission that you know it's something to pay attention to. We pay attention to every submission, so.
Yeah, we do too. I would say the exact same thing. Just get to the point.
Yeah.
So we know, oh, okay, here's the folder I need to put it in for today. Or, you know what, I have 10 minutes. I'm going to look at this right now. But yeah.
We get so many promotional emails. If you're burying that you've got a story, that's not good.
Good?
Well, thanks so much for showing up.
Thank you guys so much for being here today.
Yeah.
And thank you, Jill,
Thank you,
and thank you,
Amy.
Chelsea. It was
Thank
really
you.
fun.
Yeah, this was great. I learned some stuff too.
Me too.